Hi, welcome back to Oneness. Thank you again for joining me with this 81 days journey with 81 verses of Tao Te Ching. Today is day 2 and we will be looking at verse 2 from Tao Te Ching. So before we begin, let's observe a few seconds of silence. Thank you. So let's look at verse 2 from Tao Te Ching. So here we go. Under heaven, all can see beauty as beauty only because there is ugliness. All can know good as good only because there is evil. Therefore, having and not having arise together. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short contrast each other. High and low rest upon each other. Voice and sound harmonize each other. Front and back follow each other. Therefore, the wise go about doing nothing, teaching no talking. The 10,000 things rise and fall without cease. Creating, yet not possessing. Working, yet not taking credit. Work is done, then forgotten. Therefore, it lasts forever. Let's allow this verse to sink in. Alright, so let's look at what these verses mean in a Lao Tzu's. If he has to look this verse again, what would have been meant to us? So the first few lines goes about the contrast, right? So about beauty and ugliness. So I have to share, there is one more translation that I read. In that translation, it is slightly differently put. It says, when everyone sees beauty, then ugliness is born. So the difference is, here it says the ugliness exists. There, when we start seeing beauty, the ugliness is born. So who's creating the ugliness? It is us. Who is, when we see something as beautiful, then we classifying something else as ugly. Once we see something as good, we also classify something else as bad without even saying the word bad. So that is how the duality forms. So I like to keep this chapter, or to give a chapter a name, as the way of non-judging, or the way of duality. So we live in a world of duality. Masculine, feminine, day, night, up, down, good, bad, beauty, ugly. Everything looks duality. And also, the happiness and sadness is something that we always strive to be on the happy side of it, and then we want to completely ignore the sad side of it, or the negative emotion side of it. So let's look into this. So whenever we classify anything with being a judgmental, so we are essentially classifying things as as if it is only this or that. We don't see it as a whole. So what the Lao Tzu would have meant is, instead of seeing two different things, see it as one thing with two different natures. So likewise, if you draw a line and say this is good and this is bad, we all the time, we try to stick to ourselves into the good side of it. We thrive, okay, good, this is what I need. I don't want a bad emotion. I don't want a bad day. I don't want something which is bad. I want only good. Right? So that becomes a constantly we are just trying to move away from one to the other, whereas that creates a friction within us. Instead, what Lao Tzu would have said is, if there is a line with good and bad, instead of seeing two different things, see the line. See the line as one thing instead of seeing two things. So likewise, when we see someone else, instead of seeing their behavior as good or bad, instead see it as it is and accept them as it is. Don't be judgmental over anyone. So there comes an example. So in Hinduism, we talk about three gunas: sattva, rajas, and tamas. So sattva is a place of goodness where you are compassionate and neutral. And whereas rajas is an active state, it is passion, and then you want to get things done. And it's a highly thinking state of constant vibration of a higher frequency. And tamas is referred as a negative state. There, whereas you feel negativity, ignorance, sadness, and lethargic, that is tamas state. So in Hinduism, when Krishna talks to Arjuna about all these three gunas, he also says that there is a fourth person who doesn't fall into three gunas. He talks about the person is the one who stands as a sidelines. He doesn't go through all these three gunas at a constant flux. He doesn't say, why I prefer this over that. I prefer sattva over tamas. He doesn't classify something as good or bad. Rather, he allows himself to be with all these three states or all these three gunas as the day progresses. And he doesn't take an active effort to move from one guna to the other guna. He doesn't classify anything as good or bad. He allows himself to be as it is. So when it comes to you and me, it also like that. So there are days that we feel sad and down. But instead of accepting those feelings as it is, we constantly fight to get out of that emotion. So when we try to fight that emotion, that retains. That's what they say. When you fight, it persists, right? When you try to just get out of something, it always persists with you, right? So the other example that I have for you it is a story about a Zen master. This Zen master is highly respected and regarded in the whole of Japan, and he got so many disciples to him. During his period, once he just went and stayed in a village. There was this beautiful young girl who got pregnant in the village. So her parents asked the girl, who is the father of the child? Initially, she was not saying who it is, but then later on, he just pointed out to the Zen master and said, he is the father. Then the parents got furious. They went to the Zen master and confronted him, saying that, Master, you are the father of the child. The Zen master responded, is that so? So when the parents felt what? He's not reacting to anything. Then they went to the king. And then they put the case in front of the king and said, the Zen master is the father of the child. Then the king got the Zen master, and then he also asked, so Zen master, the girl said, you are the father of the child. The Zen master responded, is that so? So the king asked the Zen master to get out of the village and stay somewhere else. After a few months, the child was born, and then the parents took the child and went to the Zen master and handed over to him, saying, hey, this is a child, it is your child. Then the Zen master said, is that so? He happily took the child in his hands, and just lovingly he cared about the child for the next year or so. Over a period of time, he didn't show any kind of a discontentment or anything. He just accepted as it is. Though he lost all his disciples and good regards and all the good things, the respect and everything is gone. However, it doesn't affect the Zen master. He stayed calm. He took the loving care of the child. And over a year, the girl realized her mistake and then told her parents, actually, the Zen master is not the father of the child, it is someone else. Then the girl's parents really got agitated, and then they went to the Zen master, said, oh master, we made a big mistake. Because our daughter lied, we told you are the father, but now we got to know that you are not the father of the child. And the Zen master responded, is that so? And he handed over the child back to the parents of the girl. So the profound message from this is, when you are accepting both good and bad as equal. There is neither good nor bad can affect you or your internal state. There is nothing called a good emotion and a bad emotion. Every emotion is there for a reason, right? The reason for the emotion is we feel introspect. We understand that what is hurting us. We'll understand that. Even when we are sad, if we are angry, every single emotion teaches us why we are feeling that emotion. And the same thing is what called as equanimity in Buddhism. It is one of 4 Brahma Viharas, which I recently got to know. And it is called equanimity, also called upiksha, whereas you're being neutral to ups and downs of the life. You don't be emotional. And accept these two going to exist together. After all, without one, the other one doesn't exist. It is like the rise of the wave and the fall of the wave. Without the wave being in flat, it cannot rise. Without rising, it cannot fall. It has to go hand in hand. Likewise, the evaporating water, which goes into the cloud and comes back as rain. Without evaporation, there is no rain. So it is a cycle of one to the other. It is the one thing, but has 2 faces to it. That is what duality is. So now, let's move on to the last paragraph of this verse. So for this reference, I'm referring to another book. This is written by Wayne Dyer, Change Your Thought, Change Your Life. Because it's beautifully, this translation is good, and then I just want to recite that. So the sage lives openly to apparent duality and the paradoxical unity. The sage can act without effort and teach without words, nurturing things without possessing them. He works, but not for rewards. He competes, but not for results. When the work is done, it is forgotten. That is why it lasts forever. So what a beautiful words. So this words also reminds me of the whole of Bhagavad Gita is written based on the one philosophy is this. Because the whole Bhagavad Gita is when Arjuna was confused. He doesn't know what is right or wrong. He just he's heading to the fight with his own cousins and his great-great-grandfather, right? So he doesn't know what is good or bad, and then he has to, take a decision. And that is when the Krishna comes in and tells Arjuna how not to be attached with any of his action, not to the results of the action. And also Krishna tells Arjuna, saying that, Arjuna, your duty is to fight. Don't expect the result, or don't anticipate in either of the result, nor you winning it nor losing it. Because when you desire to win, and if you win, you will go on, and that ego will get into you, and then you want to conquer the whole world. Whereas if you have the fear of failure, then you will not act upon any of the things later this war is over. So neither you get attached to winning nor losing. Leave it to me. I will take care of everything. You don't get attached. Just do your deed. And that's exactly what it said in these last few lines. He works, but not for rewards. He competes, but not for results. When the work is done, it is forgotten. That is why it lasts forever. So when we act like this, when our duty is to do the thing and act upon it, let's do it. Instead of expecting the outcome and desiring the outcome to be one or the other. Let's allow the things to be as it is. So the first is the duality. The second is do the work and forget it. And the result be on its own. So that's what the second verse of Tao teaching compress and tells us to us. So with that, let's come to the end of the day 2. And the one actionable thought for today is, as the day goes by, just observe what's happening within yourself and outside. And don't classify anything as good, bad, or any kind of a different classification that you may come up with, right? So right or wrong, no judgment, just be a silent observer. Take things as it is. Be it happiness or a sadness. whatever the emotion that you may go through, that's perfectly fine. Just be an observer of that emotion. So that way, our awareness goes to the next level. We don't get bogged by the emotions that we go through. Instead, we will be the third person who observes all these emotions. So with that, let's conclude for today, and thank you so much.